Thank you, everybody. We'll call this meeting to order at 7:20. Would all please stand for the pledge of allegiance. That day. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Dr. Willett, understand we have some acknowledgements.
We do. So
Okay, if I could just, everybody could talk loudly so that Lisa can hear. Back here. Appreciate it. Sorry, Dr. Willett, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Just want to make sure.
no problem. I just wanted to honor this evening. We have the National Honor Society, our National Business Honor Society recently had a ceremony honoring all of the National Business Honor Society students. And this was very nice invitation, has every one of the new inductees into the National Honor Society's name on it. It takes a lot to get into the National Honor Society, National Business Honor Society, as well as the National Honor Society, but this specifically was the National Business Honor Society. A former graduate, Sarah Latier, actually came as our guest speaker, and she's actually in law school now studying AI in law, so it was really interesting to have her do the opening speech. I think the young adults that are part of that now Business National Honor Society really got a lot out of that. So I just wanted to take a moment tonight to kind of recognize all of the National Business Honor Society inductees, and also show you a couple pictures from that evening. So Julia Billiou, Ryan Broderick, Garrett Bumps, Hayden Cady, Andrew Doyle, Taylor Grant, Jocelyn House, Samir Kashal, Amelia Luchin, Ayla Manfrey, Carolyn Marcroft, Marilyn Millington, Bryn Peters, Ashid Saw, and Mackenzie Wood. Ashid Saw and Mackenzie Wood. So this, and by the way, the entire evening was organized by the students themselves. So they did an amazing job. They had organized and set up the whole the whole speech, the whole sequence of events for that evening. And so these are just some of the highlights. Oh, that's the back of their heads. That was my picture, not a great one. As you can see, it was well attended. The young adults were honored in many different ways. And it is very rigorous to get into it. Just kind of the overview of what the Tolland chapter does. It is a brand new group at the high school, and it is also part of our business academy and the business pathway. So just wanted to throw that. Wonderful. That's it. So the next thing that happens is that we move on to the acknowledgements of the VOAG students for Rockville. I believe we have VOAG students here tonight. Come on up. Sorry that the sun is in your face here.
Some Palmer, representative of the consulting committee of VOAG Tolland, and I'm here to present Elizabeth Gluck. Elizabeth, 4 years ago, we sent her off to Rockville, and this is her opportunity to just give you guys a idea of what she's been doing for the past 4 years, and what she'll be doing after graduation. You're on.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here tonight. I just wanted to start off by thanking for the purpose of the opportunity. My experience at VOAG has been such a great honor. I never knew that I could even take that kind of course or path in a high school setting. I always thought I had to go to college to earn a higher degree, a higher certificate of learning, and I had always gone to Tolland throughout my entire life, throughout preschool, elementary, middle school, until Brendan actually came and presented the VOAG program at our middle school. I was very intrigued, so I decided to do some research. And they have a large quantity amounts of different sciences with such as mechanics, plant science, large and small animal science, and aquaculture. So there's many different paths that I could have veered upon, but I really wanted to be a veterinarian. So I decided to apply and I was interviewed and of course got accepted into the program. And I'm very grateful I was because it has given me so many career opportunities as well as just personal social opportunities. You know, veering off from a town that I had been in my entire life was really scary, but I was ready for a new start and I've made a lot of new and charitable friends that I have at Vernon. My academic experience was very, I didn't expect it to go the way that it did. I really wanted to be a veterinarian, as I said, but I took a plant science class and I actually really loved it. So I started veering down the plant science route. I took a lot of courses about the anatomy, the science of it. I took floriculture, where I could design different aspects of like florals. I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to be able to, you know, grow on my path. They have provided me with a lot of public speaking skills as well as career opportunities. We have a class that we take in sophomore year, which is leadership, where we learn how to make a resume and we learn different speech techniques. I just wanted to like sum up. I'm just grateful, as I said, and this opportunity has really changed my life. I'm grateful that Tolland has supported me throughout my experience and that they keep giving kids the opportunity to experience the things that I
Did a great job. Very well spoken.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. All right, thanks. Also. Welcome. Yeah, in additions to the agenda. And I will entertain a motion for the approval of the May 14th meeting minutes. Do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. JD. Aye. Dan. Aye. Greenie.
Abstain, I was not there.
Bill. Aye. Brian. Aye. Dana.
Aye.
And aye. Motion passes. Thank you all. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have a good night. All right, public participation. Members of the Tolland Board of Education welcome members of the public to share their thoughts and ideas at this time. When appropriate to do so, members of the board and the administration may respond to comments during points of information. However, consideration of those in attendance and in an effort to proceed in a timely manner, follow-up discussion may need to take place outside of the meeting session. We will attempt to alternate between people in the room and people online. People online, please feel free to raise your hand if you would like to speak. Weird sense of irony, most of the people online are also in the room. None of which are raising either their virtual or real hands. That being said, we will close public participation. Moving on to correspondence, Mr. Bowden.
The last few weeks, we've had 10 emails come in, all 10 of them pertaining to the budget and their concerns over the budget. All their emails on any other topic.
Thank you, sir. Points of information, would anybody from the board like to speak? Okay.
Okay, I will. I apologize for my tardiness. I just came from a wonderful presentation at TNS. Ms. Hickey and Mr. Spangle did a fantastic job. Very cool.
What are your little ones moving up in?
They have the counselor available for the kids transitioning, and I let the for the kids transitioning up to the next level.
All right, well, thank you, Dana. Student representatives.
All right, looks like. Hi, guys, it's been a while. So this week is our Mental Health Awareness Week. Not only do we have a speaker coming in tomorrow, it is also a Spirit Week. Monday was Music Monday, Tuesday was TED-Ed Tuesday, this Wednesday was Workout Wednesday, Thursday is Tropical Thursday, and Friday is Feel Good Friday or Pajama Day.
We also have a raffle where all of the funding will go to charity. So we had like a sports basket, candy, a comfy, self-care, art, and games basket.
Additionally, you'll hear more about this in the upcoming weeks, but DECA went to ICDC in Anaheim, California. We had great success there. We had a lot of fun, and I don't want to spoil too much because, you know, there's more coming, but there's a lot of great things that happen.
Also, Project Graduation is having a raffle where the biggest prize is $2,024. So buy your tickets. And also we had our class office elections and the voting will be tomorrow.
And as Dr. Willett said, the National Business Honor Society and National Honor Society had their induction ceremonies this and last weekend.
What's, you said something's coming up for DECA, something, there's a reason, is there an event happening soon that somewhere in that region, gotcha, I won't, gotcha.
Future.
Trying to ruin the pride. I know.
Look at his, look at his faces.
I'm just so curious.
You'll have to wait.
I know. Any questions for the student representative?
So the elections are tomorrow.
The people have already given their speeches in all grades, and then the grades are voting tomorrow and will be announced tomorrow at school.
Right.
Did you guys report on how prom went?
Prom, actually, I don't, it's been a while. Prom went very well.
Yes.
I thought it was a few weeks ago.
It was a few weeks ago. It was the very beginning of May.
Is
We
it?
were on the board. What did you guys do?
Well, I mean, we built these, everything we made was pretty much from scratch. We built these like wreaths with flowers made from cut of like old books. So they were like, they had like little writings and we painted them gold and there was gold flowers. And so it all went really well. It all came together.
We had a lot of fun. DJ was pretty good. And yeah.
Any issue from the student end with how far you travel to prom for the venue?
I
Is it
didn't,
like a 45-minute drive down?
It is like a 45-minute drive. So for me personally, I didn't have too much of a problem with it. I don't know if anyone's really talking about
I
it.
haven't heard any complaints.
Yeah.
about it. I think it's just because the venue is so nice
It is.
that it makes up for the drive.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Committee reports. So, policy.
We met today. With a few things to bring the kindergarten policy as well as the policy. So I leave the kindergarten on today. And then the next other one, and then that's. 'Cause. 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 'C
We met today, had an excellent presentation from Jen Webster on the math, curriculum. Got, for me, I personally got some clarity on why math doesn't look the same as it did when we were growing up. Why the process is different than when we were growing up. So it was, for me, it was pretty informative. Yeah, so it was good. Good meeting.
Attempted to help my daughter do her math, only to be told that I'm doing it wrong.
Oh, we found out that there's parent helps on the math curriculum website on the public schools, little short snippet videos so that we can help our kids.
Coming, and she says September.
Yeah, they're gonna revamp it.
You're gonna revamp the website to try to make it more specific to where your students at. So first grade doing this or whatever, and Dr. Miller might be able to explain it better than I can, but first grade, I think first grade, and know what they're learning, so I can help them learn it, and it'll be there for the parent. I think he said it was a quick little tutorial type video of how to do it, and why they're doing it, et cetera, et cetera. It's available to parents. I think about that.
Yeah, I know the problem that I brought to her was like, look, I can help my kid with the final answer, but I don't know how to get there the way you want us to get there, and that's where she said all of that stuff to help parents help their kids is online, so that we can understand and help them with the process, to get to the answer that we can get to, that they need to know a certain process to get to that answer.
After, you said September, that's when they're targeting.
Yeah, some of it's up right now, but they're gonna revamp the site to make it more clear over the summer.
Let's keep that on our radar. After that, I'd like to bring them.
My question to our committee was, is there a way for us to blast it out, send it out, whatever, that's what she thought with the website.
Is this is this a public school website, or is this a website through the math program that we're using?
Through the public school website.
But some of the resources that are provided link up to other things. So for instance, we also talked a little bit about how Copilot, Microsoft Copilot has now gotten into an agreement with Khan Academy. So they're gonna use the AI, Copilot AI, and it's going to help people learn the content that they have on Khan. So Khan is used right now to help high school kids, a lot of things, a lot of people, as well as high school young adults. But it also helps them with SAT prep, things like that. So there'll be an AI that's helping them.
I
That is something
did
that
see
links
the math presentation she did, right before the fall election. She did one, to the entire Board of Education, but half the people aren't there anymore. Except Dave.
So let's keep curriculum in touch with communication.
Good thing he's on this board. On the committee.
Something like that, yes, you know, just selfishly speaking, something like that. For the picture of getting that. Sounds great. Anything else? Anything else?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, nothing else.
Communication.
We'll get the new business, we'll have a review of our survey that we did, and some of the parent and teacher community feedback. The curriculars, the co-curriculars like wellness.
Thank you for that.
So postpone that to L1.
All right. So moving on to chairperson's report, and I will, for once, I don't actually have anything prepared. It's disappointing. But a couple of things. The one, obviously, the elephant in the room, we all know, the result of the referendum. The council is meeting right now to discuss, to deliberate, and to come up with the next number. With them being pushed to us. But we, just like the last time, have to sit, we have to decide, we have to discuss, you know, how we will react to that different number that our addresses will be. So be on the lookout for an email asking about a special meeting. We'll have to do that sometime next week. Figure out how we can. Just like last time, if you have thoughts, if you have ideas, please get them, email them to Walt, so that he can include that in, you know, the overall data that we can look at. Yes. But the thing that, you know, as I kept pondering and thinking over the numbers the other day, you know, we're in a unique yet uncomfortable situation. You know, whatever that number ends up being, we, as the Board of Ed, owe it to our constituents, or everybody that comes to these buildings, to figure out how to make it work. You know, we are going to continue having discussions like this. We're going to continue looking for opportunities. We're going to talk about the shades that Jane has currently wanted for quite some time. The scanning through the newspaper over the weekend, on the front page, they're talking about standardized testing. They're talking about mandates that are coming. We know from our previous boards that we've got renovations to the reading program coming from the state. We've got social studies and history curriculums that are coming out of the state. We've got this giant push about physical education and changes to how sciences are going to be taught. All of these things come to us regardless of what that number is. They're all things that we're going to have to buckle down and figure out how we do that. Again, regardless. So it's not that, you know, I was having a conversation with Jen today about, you know, what our next step should be over these next couple of weeks to try to advocate. And, you know, in my mind, it's not that I'm giving up on any of the numbers or I'm thinking about it one way or the other. It's just that we've got work to do. And while we're going to do everything we can to fight for our students, to fight for our staff, to fight for our facilities and provide the best education that we will, part of that means we've got to keep going. So, you know, I'm excited to hear about the talk that went on in today's committee meetings. I'm excited to look at some of the agendas for what's coming up, because I think we all are recognizing that while the budget is critical, a lot more to do. So, thank you all. Our student reps, keep talking. We need to hear the scuttlebutt. We need to understand how every step is affecting you and your co-kids. And we need to know even more now than ever as things start to get tighter, so that we can figure out as a team how we adjust to it. So thank you very much. All right, that being said, since Dr. Miller took the agenda off of the screen. Moving on to superintendent's report, sir. K1, the kindergarten programming update.
Well, the timing's perfect for this because, I lost that internet connection, so give me one sec here. I could just literally, when you said that.
I should pontificate.
Something that, yeah, pontificated for just slightly longer, we would have been okay. Give me a sec, I'll get it back. Where I lost those. Okay. Yeah, I lost Google. So we didn't hear obviously what people scared us tonight, figure it out.
This is how it works.
Don't make a lot of noise, man. Okay. Okay, and
I got some.
Dana's done too.
all right, so superintendent's report. The first item is kindergarten programming update. I want to give a report on where we are for kindergarten. As you are aware, the policy committee January, February is working on the policy for kindergarten to put us in alignment with the state of Connecticut's new legislation. And so, you know, there's been a lot of work done on that, and there were a couple of storms and some weird stuff, so we weren't able to meet. They did meet again tonight and move this forward as, you know, as you can see, it's on the agenda as was anticipated. Basically, a law came out earlier in the year that said that moves the date for allowing kids to attend kindergarten, move the birth date requirement back. So it used to be that if you were to turn 5 by January 1st of that year, you were allowed to attend kindergarten. This law pushed it back to September and said that kids had to turn 5 as of basically September 1st. And because of that, there were going to be some kids, that normally would have been part of the kindergarten class, so about 30 kids, I estimate, that could then no longer attend kindergarten in that coming year. The state then, halfway through the year, decided to amend it slightly and said, well, you can appeal this, but you have to appeal it to your school district. And they have to have an assessment process that they will put students through upon appeal. The other notable thing that this law did is it amended the previous way that a person could appeal. In the past, a person could appeal to a board of education. Now they have to appeal to the administration of the school. The assessment that is given has to be given by certified staff, and the assessment is determined by each school district. So for the, for individuals who might want to know more, I have put a series of links that should be active if you download the PDF. If you view it online, it may not be, so you'd have to download the agenda, right-click, download it to your desktop. Those links should work if you do that. You can also highlight them and put them in a browser. But to give you an example, the first one is the state of Connecticut's statement and whatever they have of a rationale, which I'll explain in a minute. This is a state document that was put out for families sometime around the middle of the year and explained kind of what was going on, why the state of Connecticut made the change, when the change takes effect, that type of thing. So other resources are the actual public act itself, an SDE or State Department of Education digested information about the matter. I won't go in and obviously read all of this verbatim, but it is useful information if a parent wants to kind of review what happens, why it happens, some resources that they can access, resources that might help a child get prepared for kindergarten, things like that, help with preschool programming. So these are worth looking at. There's also a 60 minutes video, a 60 minutes segment that talks about the benefit of having children start older. And I'll get into that in a minute. And then Connecticut's Early Learning Development Standards, or what they call ELDS. The ELDS, or Early Learning Development Standards, are what students have to be prepared up to be able to get the best and most out of their experience. So this is a series of resources, hopefully that will help. The short version of why the state is kind of making this shift is that they were noticing, and data-wise, it was noticed that kids that were coming in that were 4 years old were generally in much greater numbers immediately going into special education services or into intervention services. Whereas if they waited just one more year developmentally, that same population of kids would not be going into special education or intervention services. So it's just a factor of their developmental readiness. Has nothing else to do with their actual, exceptionalities or anything. It's just that they weren't necessarily developmentally at the place where they might have been 1 year after that. And so they were being put into, or receiving additional services. And so the rationale was that that's not fair to the child, because the child's getting pushed into a situation, not pushed, but the child is entering a situation that they might not be 100% ready for developmentally. But on the other hand, it's also putting an additional requirement or burden on districts, because now they have kids who are 5 that may be getting, say, intervention or special ed, but they have to now add on a group that otherwise wouldn't need it if it was just 1 year later. So these dynamics were part of the decision-making, as far as I can tell. Also, if you look at the international data, what they do in the United Kingdom, or they do in Europe, they do in Germany, do in other places, the start dates are later than they are here. And they do that based on literature that's, international literature at this point, generally of the kids do have an advantage cognitively, in many other ways when they start a little later. So that's the rationale, short version. There's lots of literature you can look at on it, but the 60 minutes segment is actually about Australia, whereas the rest of that is about Connecticut and the United States, just to give you a taste that it's not just the United States thing. This is generally the way this is looked at internationally as well. So just other little bits of information here. The policy committee work, you can get to the policy committee minutes by clicking that link. But these are some of the minutes relative to that in the conversations. There's been, quite a bit of communication to families. We had an information night, March 12th. It was posted to the registration page the same night, Facebook posting. Also, anything that goes out in the bulletin is put on Facebook. We did a town blast using the town blast system as well. And then a series of, superintendent bulletins and Facebook. So, so these, many different methods were used to kind of get the information out there to families. The registration process so far, we've had 18 applicants for an assessment or for an appeal. One thing to note is that the state of Connecticut doesn't look at this as compulsory ed. Really, what they look at it as, these families are filing for accelerated education. So the way the state looks at it is a 4-year-old who's meeting all the standards and gets in is under an accelerated program, meaning they're more on the side of, say, gifted side of things than they are on the standardized ed side of things. So that's kind of like if your first grader could do 3rd grade work, a parent requesting to move them to 3rd grade. That's the way the state looks at this. Not all children under the age of 5 as of September 1st are entitled to start school, because otherwise legally they are. But the loophole in that is they say, well, if they apply for an appeal, they're getting in as an accelerated student. So it's the same kind of general idea or philosophy as if you were asking for a child to go from grade 2 to grade 5 or 3, or a middle school student because of their capability to go to the high school, that type of thing. That's how the state sort of views this from the way they've been describing it. So, so they require that districts put together an assessment process, metrics to evaluate whether a child is developmentally ready for kindergarten. And so the Tolland Public Schools did that accordingly. Like I said, there's 18 applicants, 3 have been granted to move on to kindergarten. 7 are in process, meaning they're in line to be tested. We have a series of testing dates, and the parents they select a testing date. They're given one, or can select from a series of them that go all the way through June and into July. They started in April, by the way, so the dates were available as early as April, went all the way through July. So for people to kind of get in where they want. There is sometimes an advantage to waiting a little later. So if you jump up too early, your child might have gotten, a month or 2 more of growth. So some people are waiting. Having said that, we're not sure exactly how it's going to come down, but my guess is that there will be more students that, what I'm going to call, are deferred. I don't like saying they're rejected, but they're deferred to the next year. There'll probably be more kids that are deferred than there are kids that are accepted, but that's how the data falls too. So your average 4-year-old, that's why the state of Connecticut is doing that. And the reason the state set that birth date back to September is because there were so many 4-year-olds running into trouble. And so it makes sense that if you have a process that has an assessment process of metrics that identify only a certain group as moving forward, because they're accelerated, that data should track the same way. You should have at least half or more of those students deferred to their 5-year-old year. If that makes sense. So it's not going to be uncommon to have more kids deferred than accepted. So right now we have 8 that I like to say are deferred, but 8 denied for accelerated acceptance. 3 that have been granted, 7 in process. The metrics that are utilized are the DIBELS. The DIBELS, if you don't love acronyms, I extrapolated it. The DIBELS are the dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills, and it is the standard that's used across most school districts in the United States for assessing literacy readiness, specifically letter name fluency and phoneme segmentation. So I assigned a team to do the evaluations. So Dr. Bailey Burns, Dr. Hess, Ms. Webster, Mr. Swanson, and they all have various skill areas in their various domains, ELA, math, and so on. So the assessments were designed and designed to be not too overwhelming, but designed to assess where the children are whether they could handle that K word. The Vanderbilt oral counting, the number identification, the K screener, intervention, kindergarten readiness test, which is a standardized test. So all of these data points were taken together to make a determination. In addition, we didn't just use this year's data, we normed the data over a multi-year. So when we set a threshold for what they needed to be able to demonstrate readiness, we took the kids that had started in kindergarten over the last 3 years, and we'll extend it even farther when we are able to expand that data set. And we normed the data. So when we set a cutoff, we set the cutoff based on the population of children that had success in kindergarten. So for instance, if we're setting a cutoff score, I'm just going to choose a number of 21 as a score, that's because the students that achieved 21 or higher had success in kindergarten, and the kids that achieved 20 or lower generally did not. And that's where the metric would be set. And it was used over multiple years, so 3 years of data to determine what that cutoff would be. So another example would be intervention, the screener for intervention. We have a screener that we give to kids when they come in first day. And the kids who score 9 or higher generally are identified as not needing intervention. Kids who score 8 or lower are generally seen as needing intervention. So some of the kids coming in, for instance, were getting 4s or 3s or 2s. That means that the minute they walked in the door, they would immediately require intervention services. So majority of kids being tested right now would have needed intervention the minute they walked through the door. So that's an example that just tracks with what the state was saying. 1 more year developmentally, and they're not needing those services, meaning, that's more fair to the child themselves. It's also putting less of a burden on the district to provide those services, and gives more of those resources to the kids that are 5 and above who actually need that as well, who might actually be developmentally in a more challenging situation because they are 5 and still need them. The assessment dates offered so far, April 16th, April 24th, June 6th, and July 17th. Generally, the steps in the process, we've done the public notifications, the parents file an appeal to the registration office. Registration office reaches out to the parent to explain the law and the protocols. They're offered the opportunity to appeal. They fill out the appeal form. Secretary then reaches out to schedule a assessment date. The students are then assessed, and the data is reviewed by the supervisors, the specialists, and pupil services. The appeal is then either granted or denied, and I like again to say deferred, because they're not denied from ever attending. They're deferred. They're not getting accelerated acceptance. And that letter then is sent out by postal mail and by email. They are then, if they are interested in an extrapolation of the scores and learning about it in more detail, if they're accepted, obviously they are registered. If they are deferred, they're offered an opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting where I go over all of the data with them. Give them exactly what the students scored, what the threshold cutoffs were, why those thresholds were chosen, that type of thing. Just points to consider here is trying to summarize the why. And again, I've stated some of this already, but the why in general is the new age requirement lessens the probability of erroneous special education and intervention identification. Wouldn't happen for a lot of these kids if they came in a year later. A significantly higher retention rate occurs for students in this population. For instance, you might have 6 or 7 kids in being retained, and that's most of the retention students are students in that demographic or that group. The state of Connecticut made the change due to a review of information suggesting students starting in kindergarten too early have adverse impacts on the student in school. Kindergarten curriculum has become more rigorous over the last few years and requires students at a higher developmental level than they used to in the past. You might recall that Tolland went to full day kindergarten not so long ago. That came with a whole different set of curriculum and requirements. And so that it's not the same as say the kindergarten that I went to in the past. So when most of the adults our age think about kindergarten, we're thinking about building things in blocks and riding our tricycles around certain things and, But they do that, but they do a lot more of, they do a lot more hands-on math activities, hands-on ELA, letter identification. They do a lot of things, from the state, requirements that weren't really part of the picture in the distant past. So, that means that, they need to have kids at a certain developmental level, or things are, don't go as well for the entire population. And the last point there is, again, just the acceleration standard to move forward, is about 5%, and our acceptance rate, is about where that is right now too. But, actually to clarify, the acceleration rate to move a student forward in a grade is generally 5%. We're actually moving more kids forward to K than the standard acceleration rate. So, this is actually more forgiving and more robust and more allowing more in than the standard acceleration rate would normally have. Also, what's included here are the communications, some of the communications to the families. One other piece of information, we did create the K readiness program. The K readiness program is competitively priced, actually at a point or lower than most of the other programs out there. Transportation is provided in this program at no cost to the parents. Generally, it's the same population that would have been transported anyway, so there's really no difference. But I do have one very exciting piece of information to share. We've been working to see if we could apply FRC grant to this program, and there is a chance that we would be able to provide this program at no cost for all the families that did not get accepted into kindergarten at an accelerated program. So that means that, families who weren't planning on the cost of daycare would actually get the K readiness program at no cost to them, unless they wanted to do before and after care, which would have had to have happened anyway. So, I should know that in another week or two, but I think we're going to be able to do that for families. And it'll have no impact on the operating budget because it's grant money, that we have actually generated for the FRC program. And it would not be taxpayer money. It's not from the state of Connecticut either, though. They provided a mandate and they didn't provide funding to districts for the mandate. This would be because we have been working hard in the FRC program for so long. We have funds that I needed to check if it could be applied in this direction, and I think it can. So that means that those families that are rejected or deferred would be able to go into the K readiness at no cost to them.
That would be wonderful.
Yes. Questions or comments from the board? Yeah, I have a few, but, my son is entering kindergarten, so there are quite a few of these families that are going through this headache of a process, appeals process, have been let in, have been denied. I know the cost was one of the issues for some of the kids that you're saying there's possibility that there's some there, because the cost issue was that, if they were to do daycare, like you're saying, before or after, and that it was just unfeasible for them to be in, they had to pick or choose one or the other. And if you have people that are work, it wasn't gonna work out for this program that the school had put forward. It was more or less for people who aren't working. So that's good to hear that hopefully that does come to fruition. The other question that I did have, I heard a little bit of feedback, and I know you had mentioned the scoring. So you only providing the scoring to the parents and the denial letters for just the ones that reach back out to ask for the scoring and your evaluation with them personally? Or you providing the scoring to every single parent, whether they passed or denied or?
Well, what we tell them is that whether they passed or not, but the reason is there's 7 metrics. And they are metrics that most people, for instance, if you're not an educator, you don't really maybe know what the difference is. So what we try to do is we'll say, if you're interested in knowing, what all of these are and what where they fell, they set up a meeting and I meet with them for an hour or more and go over every single one and explain what the range was, what the dribbles is, what the readiness is, what what the intervention screener is, what the range of that is, where they fell in the intervention screener,
Yeah.
what that means. Because if you get a 9, for instance, on the intervention screener, unless you have 10 pages behind it that explain what every single one of these things is and what the range is and the deviation is, it's probably more than people would want. It would be like a 10-page or 20-page, letter
Yeah,
about.
no, I was more or less what I was leaning to was, is it? Cause there's not as many kids, like you said, maybe there's gonna be 30 or so. Is there a way to guide them if they don't come into this program? Say, hey, your kid should be, look like your kid struggled in this mathematical area or into reading, you should, whatever program you're gonna do, between now and next year when you come in, you might wanna work on, your reading area or your letter or your, whatever the case may be. If there's something that can be put forward to these select few of people, consider that they're coming and doing all the testing to begin with, that's more of a generic and instead of a detail that you're speaking about.
Yeah, I think we'd have to think about a way to do that well, because, and here's why. Right now, we'll, offer them an opportunity to sit down and we'll schedule it around their schedule. Whatever they can do, I'll modify mine to match theirs, and then I'll sit with them for an hour or more, And we get to go deep into what these mean, that you couldn't do that on paper, but an example of why this is difficult is, I'll use sort of a funny example, which is kind of funny. I don't know if you've ever been in a room of 6th graders as a teacher, but when I would go into a room of 6th graders, I was used to high school kids. And I'm gonna make it broad generalization, but 6th graders don't generally understand sarcasm. You know what I mean? They don't, because developmentally, their brain, as it goes along, they will, but they don't, pick up on sarcasm immediately. And developmentally, the thing about this is, it isn't really that they didn't know, like, their phonemic awareness or their letter, fluency, that type of thing. It's not that they're not gonna get it in another developmental year. It's not that they're lacking something. It's just that developmentally, neurologically, where they're at, they're not snapping on it right then. And that's why an extra year helps. We don't wanna create a paranoia in parents that, oh my God, now my kid won't be ready. And for instance, let's say the student got in the lowest quartile on everything. Like all 7 metrics, they got the lowest on everything, and that has happened. That doesn't mean in a year they're not gonna get in the median or higher on everything. It's the reason that this is even happening is because the neurological development at kids this age, it is so much faster than, for other ages. And as we become adults, we're not, brains aren't developing that way. 1 year is a massive amount of time for a child's neurological cognitive development. So that parent might get really upset about all these 2s, or something like that. And then maybe overreact and think they need all kinds of this and all kinds of that. No, I mean, 1 more year and they're coming in, they're probably not all 2s anymore. They're probably all normed out, on the means, and they're gonna be fine. This was done because developmentally I'm gonna use the word many, but a significant enough number of kids weren't actually ready. And it didn't mean they were cognitively, in any deficit. It's just that they hadn't developed to the point of that readiness. And they were definitely going to, in a larger number, be ready at that point. So if we were to share like all these scores, that way without having a one-on-one meeting about it, I could see somebody looking at it and feeling like, oh my gosh, my child is doing terribly. And that's not how this works. That's not the case at all.
Okay.
So what we try to do is have that time, give them as much time as they want to talk about it, go through everything, and then say, here's where it fell, this is why it fell that way, this is what this means. And it's easier to do that in a one-on-one. That's how it's perceived right now. And we'll see how it goes. And if people hated that, we'll try to figure out something else. But it's more humane to have that one for an hour or more.
So, and, okay, I have a couple other points here. Sorry, take this there.
Oh, by the way, that
People have been talking in my ear for a couple of months about this. So the loss of the, in the budgetary wise, so we had a loss of a K teacher. Is this in relation to these not having as many people being accepted through this?
No, that was,
I mean, say if we had 80% of these students, would we have to hire a teacher, or can class size would be affected, or how would that reflect into the budgetary process?
well, I wouldn't reduce any. But.
No, I understand that,
Right,
but
but where
say we had an influx of, say, 22 of the 30 you're projecting,
Yeah.
they were having we're down a K teacher, is that, how would we go about this process?
So right now, that K teacher wasn't brought into the budget from a grant, right? We just didn't fund one of the grant positions. Right now, because of the law and everything, there would be an opportunity for 1 year to actually potentially, and I'm not saying this is exactly how this will fall, because we're still working it out. But we have a massive, massive, this is probably not the best word. We've talked about how at that level, there are many more students who have been identified as special ed in Birch Grove. Normally the rate would have been 12%. For 2 years, we had a 33% rate, say. So it's a significantly higher number than what we have had in the past for more than 1 year at that level. So what we do is we transfer one of those K teachers into a special ed role potentially, because there's a few that have that certification. And we'd offset the caseload numbers that teachers have right now, because the ones that have caseloads on special ed are overwhelmed by the numbers in the caseloads. So for a year, because we're going to get this number right back, this number will go back, into K readiness, and then in the next year, you're going to get influx of the ones that, as birthdays came around, and we'll have a kind of a spike. So for a year, we could actually take one of them and transfer them to a different role, and potentially take another and transfer it to one of our other roles. And, we would still have class sizes of 18. The state of Connecticut, you cannot go higher than a class size of 20 in kindergarten. So we expect to be able to maintain a class size of about 18, depending on the fluctuation. And if we have more kids, we'll keep teachers there. If we have a little bit less, we're going to move teachers into special ed role and maybe one of the other grade roles for a year where there's higher numbers. You'll remember that, say, in K5, 5th grade is at 25 and 26. That's way too big. So we might be able to move some teachers around to offset some of those class sizes down to 22, 21, and offset the caseload sizes. Right now in that school, the special ed teachers are getting overwhelmed by high levels of caseload. So that's part of the thing the state's trying to ameliorate. So we might be able to move some staff around. So bottom line is, we're going to be fine with the number of teachers we have. I just wouldn't reduce any at that level beyond what we've already.
No, I'm not looking to reduce any,
No, I know,
I was
this is
just,
clarifying.
I just want to just make sure that this process wasn't affecting the budget itself was not affecting who we're letting in and who we're denying and
No,
whatnot.
absolutely not. And even the K readiness program, nothing we're spending on that is coming from the operating budget. In terms of personnel, I mean, the physical facility, yes, but because they here, but nothing else is coming from the operating budget or taxpayers.
So one more quick question. It's not that serious. So I noticed that, I've not noticed, but I know it was in here, you had the initial, hold on. So we had the initial assessment dates were offered a week apart in April, so a month ago. And then we have the June 6th and then the July 17th. Not to say that anyone would want this, but I'm just throwing it out there so we have the information. So there's a 3-month gap, a quarter of a whole year. So if there's children who took this April 16th or 24, is there a possibility, and they got denied, is there a possibility a quarter of a year later that they can retake this July 17th date, because it is quarter of a year later and much closer to the start of the school year?
When we reach out there, if they want the later date in the original meeting, then they get
Excuse
it.
me?
So when we reach out to register, they have an option to choose a later time. They don't have to take April. If they take April, we don't retest them usually, because you're not going to get that big of a difference in, say, the intervention scale even in 2 months' time. So we don't retest.
Okay. So no retest.
So no retest, but we do give the parents that when we open it up, we say.
Oh, I understand that.
Sometimes
I'm
they
with you
think
there.
my kid is 100% ready and I'm 100%
Alright.
sure, and they choose April. Some of them say I'm not sure, so I choose July.
Yes.
But that's, they get an option here, but once they choose it, they've chosen it.
Okay.
And part of that is because as a district also, we don't have unlimited resources to continue to reassess. So those people in July, we have to bring people, we may have to bring people back to do, that type of thing.
Okay. That's all I have for right now. Hold my other questions.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Thank
Have a good night, guys.
Enjoy your last 2 weeks of school. Thank you.
Good night. Item K2.
So along with this is actually the 5,800. Now you may recall that it's the policy the board approves. The regulation is the extension of the execution of the policy. So the policy is a little shorter and then the regulation is slightly longer. You'll notice that the name of it is not K anything. It's admission to the public schools at or before the age of 5. That's the vernacular. They don't really we use the term K, but the state, the way they look at it is it's just, again, it's accelerated admission or not. It explains the public law. It explains the age cutoff. Talked a little bit about some of the impacts. It may lower enrollment in K as we expect. Then the next year, you're going to see kind of a rise. Our Family Resource Center, we created a readiness program, and then it goes into the policy itself. The policy is pretty much boilerplate Shipley and Goodwin, with the exception that we change over certain terms to make it more logical for Tolland. You'll notice that in many places it's superintendent's designee, because I designate, for instance, we're not going to say who the names of the people are because they could change. So right now it's Dr. Daley Burns and it's Dr. Hess and it's Webster. But in 3 years from now, it may not. I hope it is the same general people, but we might actually choose different individuals. And so you don't do it specific to a person or position. They're going to be our designees. The team that does the assessment will always be our designees. However, they have to be certified in those areas. So the 097 reading specialists, that type of thing from the state of Connecticut. It highlights in the regulation what we already kind of talked about, the developmental learning standards. It highlights that, the district uses the KRT, the DIBELS, oral counting, number ID, case screening, utilizing normed averages from the BOI benchmarks and all of that. So just the regulation goes into more of the detail. The policy is the helicopter view, and all of this aligns with Shipley. That's the short version.
Shannon, you want to add anything?
I think that, well, Dr. Walton and I've gone over all this. I don't want to multiple times. This is supposed to be on our policy like 2 months ago. And we had all those different scenarios where we had to reschedule. I do think that we have the resources to set our children up for success to start kindergarten. And I think it sounds like the policies and practices in place are aligned with their mental and education benefit. And then there's resources behind with the financial opportunities for. So. I like not putting names in there because obviously things change over. But I appreciate that it's not coming to Board of Ed. I appreciate it that's coming to our respective experts to make those decisions based on an educational process. As like child, ready, mentally, physically, emotionally. So, I like the way it's worded. I like it.
Just for my clarification, this is the first read, correct?
For you,
For the board, right. First read for the board. Meaning the actual vote for approval would happen.
and the only real thing here, this is already law.
And thus we
So it's
we are
it's
allowed to put it,
Yeah.
if we felt comfortable, we are allowed to put it to action if we would like. If the team would like a second read, we can also do that. But as Dr. Willett said, it is law, so it's us updating our policy to reflect what Connecticut's currently doing. So I would be comfortable moving it to action, but I've also been talking to Dr. Willett So that's why I would put it to everybody else, if they would like to second read.
Well-
They would like to put it to action.
The state,
Let me open it up for discussion for the board. Bill?
Is there any pressing need to vote on this? Is there anything we need to,
no, just, this is already happening.
right,
The state kind of threw us curveballs in that, they changed it up in about a year, and in most districts, you know. We're at a good place because we've got everything set, we've got everything established, and our assessment is very solid. So it's already in place, really, because the state kind of pushed us to make that happen. So at this point, you, do what you feel comfortable with. This is just kind of making you aware of it and then making you aware of what Shipland's model language is. And
I guess my opinion is we've got two members that aren't here. Give them an since there's nothing pressing on it,
Right.
just give them an opportunity to see it. Have their chance.
Will be the odd guy out here. I don't know what the law is, and I have a problem with just the superintendent being the final designate. And not having some oversight in this process. That's just my view of it.
well, if you look at upon receipt of such request, superintendent's designee shall assign appropriate certified staff members to assess such child to determine whether admitting the child is developmentally appropriate, right? The law now has that on the side of the administration. That's who it has set as the people to do this, and then choosing certified staff. So this is just an organizational component, because who else would choose the certified staff?
I'm not talking about the supervisor.
You're talking
Before
about-
when I was reading, before I came here this evening, I was reading the other parts of it before. The Board of Education had a say in the, like the appeal process and who came in, who didn't, or whatever the board at least had some sort of say. If there was an issue with a parent being upset with you or the process or whatever, that they could at least come to the board, make their case, say what they want to say, review the data, the 9 of us or whatnot. But now it excludes all of us who were elected by the townspeople out of this process.
So that's not a, that's the law. The law does that. And having said that, I think that probably the reason that they did that was that, people that are on locally elected commissions, there's people that are in the audience and they know in their neighborhoods, and, it's hard to be in a situation where, somebody's coming up and saying, I really want my child to start, this time. And so what was happening is, instead of it being a decision based on Dibble's, data-centered decision-making about whether that was going to help the child or not, it became more of a trying to not get on the bad side of the people that were coming to the meeting in front of the board. And so you were ending up with higher levels of intervention rates, higher levels of special education rates, higher levels of retentions, all because people were they were overriding what the recommendations were of the people that were certified to make those determinations. So the state shifted that to literally the administrator, and took the board role of making that determination, final appeal determination. They took that and put it with the certified staff. So that's not specific to our policy, that's specific to the law. But when we do our other policies,
I understand it's the law, I don't like it. So.
no, I get it. It's just-
No, I really don't like it whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, for me, whether we go to a
Yes.
board, whether we go to the board meeting or we do this
Yeah.
way, this puts more pressure on, on me actually, versus just saying, hey, look, the board will decide. The other thing is, most of the language in our other policies it has to do with assigning staff, for, roles. It usually says superintendent's designate, superintendent or superintendent's designate, because I designate, it's either gonna be that team or this principal or whoever. So that language is just a common language. The law, I think, talks about principals, administrators, but, talking to Shipland, it's whoever's in this district, gonna be assigning the team. And we're not like in Newington or Glastonbury where we've got K-12 sort of, curriculum supervisors and, 3, 5 and whatever, K2. We have 3 of them. So there's only so many people I can assign. It's not like, they don't have specific curriculum supervisors in every building. We have district ones. And the principals in this district don't have the authority to assign a curriculum supervisor. In this district, the person has the authority to do that as needed. So they don't have individual supervisors working under them, which is part of the other reason.
Anybody else? All right, then. So based on what I'm hearing, and unless there's a motion otherwise, I think I'd like to just move to second at the next meeting. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. Then, moving on to item L1, communication clubs and activity.
So, Mr. Thompson had led us down to really look at in detail what the community wants and what kids want with respect to clubs and activities. We use the term co-curricular because they are just as important as other programming in the district. Robotics programs, things like that, where kids get to do hands-on applied activities. Those are equally important to, and to any other thing. So that's why the terminology today tends to be co-curricular. And the communications committee decided to do a survey out to see what people wanted. Right now, the survey results are part of the document that is published online. If you want to look at it again, if you download it, you click the links, they should work. You can see that most of the people that responded were the parent guardians or caretakers. We also had an equally, second largest group were students, staff members, and then community members that are unaffiliated for a child. If you had school-age children, what schools do they attend? The majority of people that were responding, a lot of their kids are going to TIS. Second most is TMS, then third VGT, then THS, and the respondents. What kinds of co-curricular activities do you feel your child or children would be interested in? You can see the general breakdown that a lot of them are interested in intramural sports. So sometimes kids who don't make teams like baseball or football would like to maybe see them in an intramural sport so they can still get that activity. Next was, 18% was computer technology and esports. You may have heard of the new, kids kind of playing games competitively with each other, and then they have state and national competitions that came up. The arts and music, like the strings club, right now we don't have violins, in our program. Strings would allow kids to maybe get some experience with things like that, and that's one of the things people had asked about. Academic clubs, like supporting their learning club type of thing, community service clubs, and then career exploration was also discussed. Duration of the clubs, people preferred having it happen about 2-3 months at a time. In other words, quarterly. The second highest was semesterly in terms of how often or what block they would want each club to be in. And then beyond that, the third and fourth highest were year-long and monthly. How many days a week are you willing to commit to the co-curricular extracurricular activity? 1 day a week. Most people felt like 1 or 2 days a week was the threshold of what they would want to bring their child to or their child to be involved in. How much time are you willing to commit to this co-curricular activity or club, or how long do you think it should be? Most people felt like an hour was about the right amount of time. Next highest was 90 minutes. 30 minutes was too short for most of them, but some liked that. And then 120 minutes was generally looked at as a little too long, but there were still some people, 16.5%, who would like it that long. So that's just kind of the flyover of the general results. And I didn't know if you wanted to, Brian, say anything about some of the more specifics, but I know that they also came up with some conversations around the esports again, computer coding, board games, kind of instructional music, Seeing if Miss Pallas and Miss Hoyt could teach a special language, you know, outside of what's taught in school. Having a career, kind of a career-oriented club. We did have a career day at TMS, bringing that back. Intramural sports, the conversation in the committee meeting was about dodgeball, pickleball, and rock climbing. I mean, I think it was a great idea that Mr. Thompson had. The committee really went for it, and I think they came up with a lot of good data that we can use to help look at what some of the possibilities for next year could be.
Yeah, so, I'll just add a few things there, Dana and Jen. You know, went through all these data points, and it seemed like a lot of it was in the high school seems to have quite a bit of their own events and clubs and things happening, and a lot of these younger grades, even from Birch Grove to TIS, and even some in the middle school, these lower grades are really struggling for kids to do things outside of the classroom, things to entertain them after school, and whatnot, and just to keep continuing, you know, socializing, friendships and different things with the students in their class. So, what we're trying to do is, you know, well said, is just trying to create some themes that a different variety of students can, you know, possibly sign up for, that hasn't necessarily been offered in a while, or just something to kind of get the ball rolling on some of these curricular activities for after school, especially in the younger grades. And we're hoping to try to see what sort of staff we can have to explore getting some of these started in the fall. The goal would probably be to start something, you know, get the school year going, and hopefully maybe by the end of September, run something into Thanksgiving for one session, and then maybe after the holiday break, start something up for the spring session or whatever after the winter session of different activities. And there was this data, and there was also, like Walt said, if you did want to take a look at some of the data we've taken out, what people wanted, but there, I think there was about 180 or something separate comments besides just this data here. This was more or less pick and choose data, but then there was a lot of write-in data as well, which was quite a bit. So if you wanted to,
Yeah, and that's actually in the folder.
that's in the folder. Okay.
And all the board members can access that in the communications folder.
Yeah.
We don't put it up on the internet, it's might have a kid's name.
Well, we were talking about, like, Brad said, is having different opportunities and options for our, well, all students, but like you said, there's a lot of activities that happen at TMS and THS. After school clubs, different things, and not so much the younger. I think the big conversation is that we're not doing something that's, I don't know, I'm not saying competitive, but repetitive of what the rec center is doing. If they do futsal, we do futsal. No, but you know, because we don't want to take away from opportunities to the rec center and those kind of things. So, some of the stuff also brought up would be like logistics. You know, the middle school has the late bus. So kids that are doing, the students, kids that are doing the extracurriculars have an opportunity, or co-curriculars, sorry, have the opportunity to get a ride home, because, you know, some of the working families maybe not necessarily can do the pickup and do it. Obviously some of these clubs will be like a pay-to-play type scenario.
Yes.
So, you know, because I mean, when this first came to fruition, I was like, we can't fund our schools with other things or get things. So now we're trying to throw other things to fund, but I think it's awesome that we open up the door. I really would challenge you guys to go look into the folder and look at some of the comments from our families. Some of them are kind of eye-opening of what the students were interested in. It was really, really cool data. So I'm glad that we're able to get this rolling, and hopefully we'll be able to get at least some one or two things going, because that's these young minds, that's how you start to build the whole student, right? Maybe they're not the strength in math, they're not the strength in English, but they're strength in science, and athletics gets them charged, or they like robotics, or they like Lego, STEM, or whatever. So it was really cool. Like I said, the comments were really cool,
Yes.
from our families. And this took a lot of time and effort behind the scenes, so I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for people who got involved and actually built out that. And, I think well, at least our classroom parent emailed us about it, in addition to the email coming out saying, don't forget to do this survey. So thank you to the class parents that did that as well.
Just from a financial standpoint, as she had touched base, correct me my numbers, Walt, it was what, 25 students at about $50 a pop, and we'd cover it, and if we had 18 or 21, he would probably say, hey, we get $200 or $300 out of petty cash and cover the, you know, cover the club,
Takes about 25 kids to cover the cost of the advisor.
so,
That was my question.
yeah,
Yep, that was
okay.
good. The answer. good.
Anybody else? But from my perspective, and thank you to the committee for grabbing this and running with it. I guess I'm looking at it from a slightly different perspective in that, you know, we get 100 surveys every year from various groups and organizations, and most of them get recycled to the burn pit of it. Because I've lost faith in those organizations that the questions are asking. So it's exciting to hear that we put out a survey. We've taken that data and we're driving it to actionable type things. And I just want to make sure that we follow through so that our community knows when they speak, we'll listen and we'll try. I'm also looking forward to the point where, you know, you've got these kids with a scrutiny that said every kid has that reason, that thing they come to school.
Yes.
And once they're dead, then the staff can use all that to get all the rest of the education to do that. So opportunities like this, specifically when we're asking, I think will help grab those kids that were not already grabbing.
Anybody has any ideas or whatever, after looking at the data, feel free to email us or whatever.
Or come to the meeting.
Yeah, come to me, yeah, sure. Oh, well.
Any other comments?
I'll just say that my kids in the past have done the team sports clubs and the puzzle clubs, and they loved it.
Okay, great.
So
All right,
I think they're good things.
thanks.
All right. Dr. Willett, moving on to L2, update on the partnerships and tuition.
Sure. So as is mentioned here, we are working to expand our partnerships with other districts. Union was mentioned, and we have been talking with Union families came out to our school. We did a presentation, and we are inviting the Union students to our Step Up Day. It'll be up to the parents whether they want to have their kids attend that, because it is during school time. But we are working with Union very closely. I'm working very closely with the superintendent. Currently, the town is looking to decide whether they want to send students to one of three schools, and we're one of those three. So, so far things are going well. I don't know, and I said I will not know probably until late June, maybe even July, where we're at. At that time, I would be presenting the Board of Ed any final details if they were that, you know, if we were chosen as the one they were most interested in, we would go into the next stage, which is reviewing the contract, things like that. I think I have already posted that in FFC. That's in the FFC folder. If you want to go through that. But, it would be a great opportunity for Union. I think it would be a great opportunity for us. The students would be Tolland students from Union. But again, I don't know exactly how that's going to end. But you know, we've made a lot of efforts, done a lot of work, and we're hopeful. But I really have no idea how that's going to end. Probably the most that I should say about it at the moment until we get.
So obviously there's a lot of work that's got to go on before all of the details get brought to you. But ask Dr. Willett for just a quick high level update. That being said, are there any comments or questions?
that we're looking at, like, we have something to say.
I am, and it's just thoughts that are going through my head, and I'm just gonna put them out there, and you can shoot them down if need be. Is
That's the
there?
way I'd like to.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow Brian's footsteps here. Is there any value in you as the Board of Ed chair for Tolland getting somehow involved, with these discussions, being as, hopefully soon to be their representative, on the Board of Ed? Is there any value in that? Because your voice holds a little bit of weight with another town choosing us. So I'm wondering, is there any collaborative effort that could happen between the two of you?
Well,
To make a better pitch?
that stage is coming. I think right now it's just coming down to metrics and
Gotcha.
and things like that, but that stage would definitely be where we're headed next.
Yeah, and to your point, Bill, absolutely, it would be willing to. When that's ready, or when that's appropriate. Dr. Will and I have some time set aside or that we're scheduling to do just that, where we're meeting weekly periodically to cover topics that need to be specific to that, but, so yeah.
I mean, is this any more than a sales pitch? We're selling them on Tolland, or is there more involved than that? Is there a financial piece for them? Is that part of everything?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely making a sales pitch. I think that, what we're looking for is a partnership, that matches unions' needs and, and also provides them a very welcoming and awesome school system. And, through that, getting 30 students into the system, that would be, a good thing. We have room for that partnership, and, that would really only bring a mutually beneficial relationship to there for us. It really would. So I wouldn't even pursue something I didn't think was mutually beneficial, because I wouldn't want, that for them. I wouldn't want that for us. But we do have some strong competition, so it's hard to say where it will land. But it would definitely, and I give you my word on this, have a mutually beneficial component. They would gain from it. We would gain from it. Our children would collectively gain from it. So that it's a good thing if we can make it happen.
Yeah, I'll get it.
And that contract is there.
I guess the thing that's going through my mind is a lot of times when businesses come into town, they get tax breaks for the first however many years to incentivize them to come to certain towns. But I'm sure you've already thought of any types of incentives to make us look more appealing to them, even from a financial standpoint for the town.
Yeah, we're amazingly appealing on our own, but
Well,
there are.
I agree,
There
but
are factors that.
Might
would
need
be
to put a little
appealing.
icing on the cake.
Yeah, no, we definitely, there are there are financially appealing factors for both parties. It's a symbiotically beneficial relationship if it were to happen.
Good.
Those are all
For now.
good comments. I feel like I loaded up my anti-aircraft. Other comments?
I just wanna make sure we're not labeling it as a sales pitch. I do think it's good for the students. I think it's good for Tolland. It's not a sales pitch. It's a good school system that we have here. They're looking for a good education and good experience. And I just don't want it to, in public meeting minutes, come off like that. We're doing it for their benefit. They need a place. We have a welcoming and good opportunity for them.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make sure that that's maybe the lead.
It's more like bachelor. Remember that, where there's 3 bachelors, remember where you have to sit behind and ask them questions? Kind of resembles that,
With and I think Dr. Willett kind of put, I know you said it, someone just one of Bill's comments, but it keys into what Reenie's saying there, we don't have to sugarcoat, we have an amazing project here. From our facilities to our curriculums to our staff, to everything that is Tolland Public Schools screams goodness. And so what I think we're doing with this opportunity and continue to support that is showing that. and letting these other areas and these other communities recognize that and have the opportunity to join. With what- Thank you. That's good clarification. All right. Dr. Willett, moving on then to L3, mandate relief discussion, legislative update. Sure.
So, there's really two bills that we're kind of monitoring right now. Some of this was done in communications, so I just kind of recap a couple of, some of the information that was there. I'll start with, sorry, circling here for a minute, sorry, the pop-up, there you go. House Bill, oh, now it's gone. Well, anyway, House Bill 5437. The Senate bill basically, is one of those kinds of omnibus bills that have shoved a bunch of stuff in it. Right now, it's waiting for the governor's approval, but the long and short of it is, the one of most interest to you will probably be the mandate relief. And basically, it is, for all intents and purposes, creating a committee that would review, legislative actions and come up with advisement about whether whether a certain bill was going to have a untenable financial burden. So the establishment of this mandate review council will not have any real teeth, but it will actually be better than not having a mandate review council at all. So that's some of the other things that were in this. I've kind of put in there for board review. It's in the communications folder, so I won't read it verbatim. But there were sections that, helped minimize or reduce some of the duplicated things that the state was having us do. Some of the duplicated reporting was going to be eliminated. So those are generally positive things. Overall, I think it is a good effort to try to make things a little bit better than they have been. There's obviously a lot of words here as part of it, but it has been adopted in both houses, and so the governor's going to be taking a look at it. But CAPS did its end of season recap. I'm sorry, CASBO did an end of season recap on this one, and so it also, gave some bullet points as to in a shorter version than what I provided, because I gave you all of the painful details, extrapolated in case you want to read it. But this is a nice short version from CASBO. 5437 creates a professional development evaluation committee to establish PD changes that the state wants. Established funding statewide for an educator database for CIAC. Established an education mandate review advisory council. That's what I was talking about. And it delays the implementation of food waste and all that. The reason why I, brought this up is really because of the mandate review advisory council. As I mentioned at the beginning of my blabbering on this, it's an omnibus. So that means they shoved a bunch of other stuff in there with it. And so that's why you see all these other things and you're wondering what food waste has to do with a mandate, I think the irony is that if you look at the full thing, it actually adds some mandates, but it's okay because now you got a committee that's going to review it. But the overall bill, in a sense of irony from the state, adds some, but at least they have this committee that will be reviewing. So it's a positive thing overall. 5437 is, a positive thing. So anyway, I included that information here. The other one, I have to stop screen sharing for this for a second because there's no direct document that I can use. I have to kind of speak from my notes. But the other bill that I wanted to bring up was the HB 5524 bill. HB 5524 is the notwithstanding language bill that I have talked about in the past. I posted this information to the board dashboard. You may recall that there was an audit of the Birch Grove project, and as part of that process, they reviewed the space standard, and that there was a conversation about space standard, eligible costs and so on. So I've noticed some communications community saying, oh, we tell them we'll owe 3 million or 6 million or 11 million. Basically, that has almost been resolved. HB, that bill, HB 5524, has entered notwithstanding language, which means that it is going to say that the space standard, normal space standard, stuff from the state doesn't apply to Tolland. And there's 100 reasons for that I won't go into, but if you are interested in what those 100 reasons are, and you go on the board dashboard, there's an almost 100-page document I put together for that. You can go through it. So there's a lot of information as to why that doesn't apply to us. And I can go into more detail or less if you want now, it's up to you. But the general thing to know about this is that it's good news that HB 5524, that notwithstanding language passed the House, passed the Senate, and it is expected that the governor will sign it. But that means that Tolland would not owe anything more than what we had already planned on, with 89% reimbursement on the building, 100% reimbursement on the portables. So there would be no, adverse impact to Tolland if this thing passes. It's likely to pass, and we're not the only ones. If you look at the notwithstanding language, that paragraph that's in that bill, it has many other school systems in it too. So we weren't the only ones in this situation where DAS swooped in and said, DAS is Department of Administrative Services, and they have an audit division, and they were doing the audit. There were other schools that were caught up in this too. And the very short version is that the state essentially through the director of school construction and grants at the time gave us the space standard that we used. So the state gave it to us, and generally the thinking is you can't punish us for taking the thing that you were given. That's the shortest version. And so they've accepted that, and it's likely the governor will sign it. So Tolland will not be in a situation that it owes any.
Any comment? Rainey?
Thank you for, you get that. As a member of the Birch Grove Building Committee, it was tough having all this misinformation out. So I'm glad that we're able to clarify it with accuracy. Because we did really dot our i's and cross our t's well, and handle any change with anything properly. So I'm glad that this has come through. It's cleared up and it's all set. And hopefully that'll mitigate any misinformation out there. That's it.
Any other comments? All right, Dr. Willett, and thank you. I spoke with Dr. Willett and asked him to bring these forward, for our information. To keep an eye on those things that are happening in the state that are directly going to affect that we can reposition as well as add. All right, moving on then, we have no old business. We have no board action. Item O, executive session. I hope this doesn't upset anybody too much, but due to the fact that one, we are missing a couple of board members. Two, the fact that the town council meeting is still going on, and I'm certain people don't want to sit here and so we've got to have a special meeting anyway to discuss the town council numbers that come out. I'm going to move that executive session to that.
You need to vote on that. You have to have a motion to vote on it. And you just
To take off. I can do something.
do your stuff. Logically.
Yeah, no. But I would recommend for those who have avail yourself of this opportunity to set up your meetings or discuss with Dr. Willett any questions you may have. All right, then item P, public participation by non-Russian people.
I'd like to add on Dr. Willet's review that he brings this stuff that I can't.
That one,
Who brought that reading in? You put it back.
I can't claim
The
that.
problem is I'm not a candy eater, but when
Yeah.
stuff's in front of me, just you are. So, yeah, no
Yeah,
control.
like 3 or 4 dollars. Getting it all. Can you
We
look
gotta
up
vote on
the participation we have? With anybody in the, you know what, let me just say, if there's anybody online that would like to participate in public participation, please raise your hand. Okay. Points of information, would anybody from the board like to speak?
As I say, Jake, you've been uncomfortably silent this entire.
Yeah, well, that's just how meetings go. I don't hope we covered today, but just cover everything today as well. So. Let the both things go. I just want to say in regards to obviously the last month, there's been a lot of things said, posted, texted, all sorts of stuff. And I've sort of bit my tongue on a lot of it, just because we got to get through this process. We got to get through this process and figure out a way to support these schools and make sure every department in the town is taken care of. This is more of a request than it is a statement or a request or anything like that. I don't think we're getting anywhere when we're arguing, going on social media, arguing with one another, texting things. We just got an email, I think, earlier today or yesterday. I mean, there's all sorts of things happening that I personally disagree with, morally, ethically. I cannot co-sign on to, and that's just how I feel. I won't get into all the specifics and whatnot. I think the conversation will take place at the right time with the right folks. But as a board, you know, I hope we can agree that, you know, our messaging, you know, as a board in terms of what we're supporting, is unified. And I feel it with this board. I think more than ever, to be honest with you, in the last 3 years. It's not just because of the last board or this or that. No, it's because of where we're at right now. I think things are very hostile right now, and I think everybody's a little fiery around this time of year. And so I just wanted to mention, you know, again, I've been very, very frustrated to see some of the things that I've seen all over the place. And again, whether it's in my inbox or whether it's on social media, or whether it's, you know, in person, whatever it might be. So I just hope we can move past this budget cycle and prepare for the next one with some composure and respect. And that's my only request. So I just wanted to get that out. I know this is more so for this is not a public thing. This is for us as a unit, and hopefully the town council as a unit again, just to work with one another and get some. I'm not trying to demonize you. You're not trying to demonize me. That's not what's happening. We're trying to figure out some solutions to a problem, right? Or several dilemmas, or whatever it might be that we're trying to go in and address. So that's all. I just wanted to address that.
Thank you. And let me keep it on that. I agree. Yeah, I've been doing the board for a while now. And I'm not being facetious at all when I say that this board excites me. We have such a diverse perspective in each of us. Bill and I, you know, we see different sides of the equation and have for years, and our conversations are wonderful as we talk through it. And I think this board has that. You know, Jen and you and I have had some talks. The budget is a tough one, but I am not kidding when I say that I don't think the budget's going to be the toughest. There are a lot of very strong topics on the horizon that we as a district are going to have to look at. And I think we have proven that the 9 of us possess the ability to disagree without disrespecting. That we all possess the ability to read on social media some of the muck that is getting thrown around. Some of which by friends, some of which by people that we're not necessarily friends with, but we can read that without getting drawn into it, getting sucked around it. Come back in here and have respectful and honest conversation. And that is what's going to benefit our district. You know, I sincerely hope that we can stand as a role model for some of the community members that don't. I sincerely hope that the students, not only the ones that are participating here, but the little ones that are looking at us and saying, that's a board member, are seeing exactly what we wanted them to see when we chose them for this. But a long way of saying I agree with what you're saying, and I thank you all. Any others? All right.
I think Facebook's, social media is the onto. It just brings out those and.
Dr.
It stinks. Jaden, thank you for saying that, because you have more. in your young 20-something years, you have more, wisdom. Thank you.
And I'll just.
You know, and I appreciate it because I will tell you. What I get frustrated with is we're all trying, I think we all have the end goal to do what's best for Tolland, or we all feel very differently about what that looks like. And maybe they are my friends and maybe they are my neighbors, maybe they aren't my friends, but they are my neighbors. Just have to be cognizant of that. And what we're roles versus, what is the word I look for? How we're presenting ourselves to our youth. I have to remember, like, as a Board of Education member, as a mom, as a member of the community, it's tough and it's very indicative of what's going across our nation. And I hate to see our little town just go down the drain, if you will, when it comes to this junk. Because we could be utilizing this energy for better. So I'm appreciative of my teammates on the policy committee. I'm appreciative of the teammates on all the committees I'm on and in here. Because we have been more positive and real, because we talk real too. Anyways, thank you, James.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, the 20-something part. I got a message the other day from a 20-something-year-old. I won't lay out all their information. And it was a message about, and this is true, and this is fact, Dr. Willett hiding and stealing money. So, I mean, and again, this is somebody who just went through basically 12 years of training of how to dissect sources and determine where you're getting your information from and all these things fresh out of that. And these are the things that folks are like, this is reaching another level person for me. And but again, it's on both sides of that coin. So I just think we've got to figure something out heading into next year. How do we be coordinated and go through this process instead of the finger pointing and the accusation, baseless accusation, might I add. I mean, I won't get into it, but it's again, this whole process it's like heartbreaking. So, yeah, I appreciate what you guys are saying. I appreciate that we're able to sit here at 9:02. I promise I'm done speaking, and just put a smile on our face, talk about the kids, make sure they're taken care of. So, thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
Instructional rounds are tomorrow. We'd love to see you at the instructional rounds. 4 of you did sign up so far, and I sent you information. But all of you are welcome if anyone wants to come. It's actually here. And 7:30 starts earlier than the other ones, but that also means you get out earlier. So, you probably 7:30, 7:45 arrival, and then we start. So.
Dr. Willett, I neglected to sign up, but I would like to go.
Which is great because you're going to end up taking my spot. I have to back out.
Well, and
Do you want me to sign? I have the link up. Do you want me to sign you up?
I don't know. I didn't
Got a new job.
today, but so he did. So, but I'm glad you're coming. Tom. It's actually, but open to anyone, everyone, and anyone
I was gonna show up as me.
That's all right. I'll be like David.
I'm submitted twice.
You are.
Again, just one last thing, Jake, what you say, what we do is we make sure everything is here. You've shown it, I know Brad, a couple other people have gotten reports, have gotten concerns from your constituents. You've brought it to us, we've made sure that they show up on an agenda. We can get an update, we can speak about it. Keep showing the community that if they come to you, we'll make sure that we see if they talk about it. We rebuild that trust, and that takes a lot. That being said, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Jaded.
Any discussion about adjourning?
Brian. Good discussion. Okay. Jade.
Aye.
Dan. Aye. Greenie.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Brian. Aye. Dana.
Yep, aye. Sorry.
Motion.
Yep.
Motion passed.